Hey guys, Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films back again with Doctor Who Classic. Last time we had Snake Dance. What was that one about?
Well, it took place about 500 years after Kinda.
We think.
And there was a group of people who still worshipped the snake. I don't know, it was semi-confusing. But again, Tegan gets her mind possessed by the Mara, and it all works out in the end. I mean, seriously, it was okay, but not one of the most memorable episodes ever.
Yeah, it was all right, and you have to have that type of inflection too. It was all right. It could have been worse, and we've seen that be much worse. but yeah, overall, it was all right. It was a little confusing with the whole backstory of the Federation defeated the Mara and stuff, but it didn't really matter. So it was all about a snake in Tegan's boot that possessed her, and then the Doctor used his mind powers and won, I guess. I don't even remember how he won, really. He just kind of used his mind, I guess. So yeah, hopefully.
I will say one thing. Although I am enjoying the Fifth Doctor here, he does seem to get very frustrated very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And tends to be abrupt and rude. Now, the Fourth Doctor was also rude, but he usually then followed that by going, oh, well, that's just me, get over it. But this guy is very intense, and it does not seem to be inclined to apologize for his rudeness.
Yeah. I think part of it, and I don't know, how much is thought. I don't know how much of it is thought during the writing process and how much is thought by Peter Davison himself.
Yeah.
But I think part of the problem, or the thing with the Fifth Doctor, is that he doesn't have much confidence in himself anymore. Because the Fourth Doctor was just like the definition of confidence. Yeah. It was ridiculous, honestly. So even in those moments where he was being rude, it kind of worked because it's like, well, whatever he's doing is towards the goal of getting out of everything safely, and he can walk into a room and command the entire planet, basically. Yeah. And the Fifth Doctor doesn't have that, and that's why I kind of question, like, okay, is that in the writing, was that a deliberate choice by the writers and, whoever was in charge at the time, or was that a creative decision by Peter Davison specifically? Because that is in contrast to the previous Doctor, and pretty much every time you get a new Doctor, it has to be in contrast with what came before. So yeah, like, the Fifth Doctor, he's much less confident, at the very least, like, he's confident in the way that he knows what he's doing, he can figure out a solution, he can get to the end goal of saving the day or whatever, but there's just something about it, he can't carry his presence anymore. And certainly with his companions, and maybe it's also part of the fact that his companions, especially right now, didn't really know the Fourth Doctor that well. Like, Nyssa and Tegan just got very brief glimpses of the Fourth Doctor before he regenerated anyway. The closest would have been Adric, and he's dead, so...
Yeah, and now, I understand they set this up because he took a long time to recover from his regeneration, much more so than any of the other Doctors. But he's now into his second season. You would think he would start to, build up some of that confidence again.
Yeah, like, I still see some of it, but I don't know, it could also just be a mix of his companions as well, because, like, I can't remember if it was last episode or the one before that where he just completely yelled at Nyssa. I think it was when they were on Gallifrey, and yelled at her to go back to the TARDIS, and when he went back, he did quasi-apologize. he more just gave a nice answer to what her question was, and it just sort of resolved everything. So I think it's just a thing of, like, he tries to have that confidence even if he's not fully there anymore, and his companions can really chew him out now, which is a weird thing to say, because it's not like the Fourth Doctor didn't have companions to chew him out. Yeah. He had Sarah Jane and Leela and both of the Romanas, and any one of them would have chewed him out. It's just that he was just, like, like so like 10-brained about it that he could always revert it back to he's right. And the Fifth Doctor just doesn't have that anymore. So,
but anyway,
but it's just a good. It's an interesting observation of his character. And again, none of that is criticism. We're just it's just very interesting comparing him to the Fourth Doctor. So, but yeah, today we're on to
Mawdryn Undead.
Yes.
I'm assuming that's how it's pronounced. It may be Welsh, and it may be pronounced Chumley for all I know.
Yeah, that's basically. I mean, see, I kind of wish it was French because then we could just say "ma" or "mod" with just the slightest bit of that D, and then just let the rest of it go. That's all I learned when I learned French. Is just say the first half of the word, and then maybe like the first fourth of the next letter, and then just kind of let the rest slide off. That's French. So,
but I do remember that's a joke in our family. It's pronounced Chumley, because your brother was once reading a book set in England, but one of the character names, I think, was spelled Chomondelaay. It looks like Cholmondeley. And we looked it up, and it said it's pronounced Chumley. It's like, okay, sure, why not?
This is not to be confused with the Chumbleys.
The Chumbleys. Oh, yeah.
From the First Doctor. I don't know if I still have those on my computer. If I do, and I remember, which is a difficult combination, I will try to put them on the screen again. But again, I have to have that on my computer, and I have to remember to do that, which is unlikely. So, that's the problem, is unless it's in the video, it's like the reaction itself, I'm not going to remember to edit it. So, anywho. Why don't we just get going? Unless you got anything else.
I got nothing.
Then let's just get going.
Come on, hello.
I'm assuming you have a key for it.
No, not all of them did. Sometimes it was a push start.
I guess it wasn't really a concern 100 years ago.
Slow down, please.
It'd be funny if they suddenly were crossed by, was it Bessie?
Look out!
Whoop. That was quite the car crash.
I don't think I'd really care if I were. I hate Earth.
You would like to leave?
Is it possible?
All things are possible.
Then get me away from here, please.
But first, we should have to discuss terms.
Damage at your end, Brigadier.
That's the Brigadier.
30 years of soldiering, I've never encountered such destructive power as I have seen displayed here and now by the British schoolboy.
Huh. What happened to his mustache?
It's AWOL.
One of the most evil creatures in the universe. He calls himself the Doctor.
I can't hear you.
Called this guy called himself
I
your
may not
guardian.
proceed to act in this. I must not be involved.
I need time to think.
There is no time.
Is this the Black
Yes
Guardian?
Or no.
Don't send me back to Earth, please.
Yes.
Well, I certainly
or
hope
no.
not.
Coming round.
Steady on, old chap. You had a bit of a knock.
Pretty sure there's about 100 anime with that exact plot, by the way.
Doctor, you make no effort at games, you refuse to join the CCF, you do little or no work in class, though you have a first-rate mind. And now this.
I wasn't driving, you know, sir.
What?
The Brigadier's car.
But Ibbotson
I
said...
didn't want Ibbotson to get into trouble, sir. I only went along in case he got hurt. I knew he wasn't really able to drive it, and, well...
I see.
Turlo must get some sleep, Headmaster.
Of course, matron. I'll look in again later.
Just throwing his buddy under the bus?
Or under the car.
Yeah. And it's quite a heavy car, too.
Waking or sleeping, I shall be with you until our business is concluded.
I love his voice.
It is pretty good.
Are we safe?
It sounds so familiar.
Don't you know?
Innocent. And what have you got to say for yourself?
Please, sir. I'm very sorry, sir, but it wasn't my fault, honestly. I'm very sorry, sir.
I mean, there were a dozen witnesses that it was Tarlo specifically.
No sign of any passengers.
I'm having cocktails with the captain.
What?
Well, I mean, it's more like the Queen Mary than a spaceship.
Queen Mary was a large ship, like the Titanic. It's now a floating hotel in San Diego, if I recall correctly, or Los Angeles.
Take it back. It's not the Queen Mary. It's the Mary Celeste.
Which he's been to before.
Well,
Is this the guy we've been seeing in the thumbnails?
The controls of the vessel are of no interest to you, Turlo.
That's a heck of a long way to the obelisk.
If you took more regular exercise, Ibbotson, not only would your body be less disgusting, but you'd enjoy a healthier imagination.
I didn't imagine it, sir.
Take it from me, boy, a solid object just can't dematerialize.
And yet you've seen the TARDIS do it. It's a rather unusual fashion on his vest, too. Normally the buttons go all the way down to his belt line.
you didn't give Turlo a weapon or anything. I don't know why you're banking on this scrawny schoolboy to defeat the Doctor.
Come on, back to the TARDIS.
Doctor, wait! What's the matter? Well, if that thing's back, then someone could be on board the ship.
Took him a sec.
Who are you? In the name of all that is evil, the Black Guardian orders you to destroy him now.
Thank God he has a rock. That'll get over his regenerations.
Has it been 6 years since we saw that entire season with the Black and White Guardian?
Maybe.
Now, boy, do it now.
Yeah, leave this rolling for a sec. I assume that's the same actor from the last time we saw the Black Guardian, but I don't know, something about his voice, it feels like I've heard it somewhere else other than Doctor Who.
Yeah.
But how long ago was that? That would have been with the first Romana, so I want to say season 16 or 17. This is 20, so it's not quite 6 years, but it's close. It's kind of a strange time to bring that back, although, you know, we have not had an original villain this season, because we've had Omega at the beginning, then we had the Mara, and now we have the Black Guardian. Each a villain from a different era of Doctor Who, and it is the 20th anniversary season, so I'm wondering if that is supposed to be the thing, is that every episode will have a returning villain.
Huh. That'd be cool.
Well, yeah. Now, we've already recently had the Master and the Cybermen, so maybe bring them back. Well, I mean, it's easy as can be to bring the Master back, but maybe not the Cybermen. But I also thought it's been a little while since we've had the Daleks, so maybe that's an interesting idea for a season, because otherwise it's, what was I say the Black Guardian was a season villain, but he really only showed up at the end of that season, but whatever.
And now he's dressed like a giant crow.
Yes.
I will say, though, the minute I saw that costume, when I directed A Midsummer Night's Dream for Oklahoma Shakespeare in the Park back in 1985, my Oberon was dressed very much like that. Black all over and feathery kind of costume, so that he looked like a giant raven.
So it's certainly an interesting. At least you can be 100% sure that he is the Black Guardian, unlike the last time he showed up, where we were completely confused and thought he was the White Guardian. Like, there was no White Guardian, it's just the Black Guardian. But I don't know. But yeah, it's just it's an interesting choice, and if it is supposed to be that we're bringing back a returning villain every episode, that makes more sense, because otherwise it's like, this season-long villain just being brought back for one episode is kind of odd. But yeah, that could be it. I question the decision, though, of if we're bringing back big bad guys from Doctor Who. I question the return of the Mara, but I guess that's just kind of on me for not enjoying Kenda at all. But then again, it's like, who else from the Fifth Doctor's era do you bring back that's an original villain?
Yeah.
Because you can't do the Master. It would have to be... It's either the Mara or... what was the Fort of Doomsday guy where...
Oh, yeah.
The android guy.
Yeah.
So... Which, that could be interesting. I like that episode. So... but I guess, in that sense... It's making sense more watching each episode now. So now, I'm curious what we're going to have next episode. So, but in the meantime,
we still have no idea what Mawdryn Undead means.
Right.
Oh, be tackled by the Brigadier.
Nah. Oh, that works too.
Like traveling in a food mixer and just as dangerous. I'd be afraid of coming out pureed.
Look!
Yikes.
Oh. Puree.
Parboiled.
But I'm sorry, if we have met before, it's entirely slipped my memory. And I've got to get these boys back to school. Come on, you two.
Alternate universe? Well, that's going to leave a streak. Ooh! Ugh. He's oozing.
Get some clothes for him. Don't you think we should get him into a bed? It's too risky to move him again. Go and find some blankets. We must keep him warm.
I think he got plenty warm already.
It's all right, Doctor. You're safe inside the TARDIS.
Why do I get the feeling that's not really the Doctor?
It didn't even look like Peter Davison.
No.
UNIT is a secret organization. If you are aware of its existence, you will almost certainly have signed the Official Secrets Act.
Is there somewhere we could talk?
Oh, very well. My quarters. This way.
It's the mustache. Without it, he doesn't have his memories.
How's Sergeant Benton these days?
Oh, left the army in '79. Sells second-hand cars somewhere.
And Harry Sullivan?
What a downgrade.
Major. Last heard of doing something very hush-hush at Portland Down.
What an upgrade.
Do you ever see anything of Joe Grant? Sarah Jane?
Sarah Jane.
Liz Shaw, you'll remember, of course.
Well, someone should.
Someone just walked over my grave.
Perhaps it was a Yeti. Colonel Lethbridge Stewart.
Mustache. Remember the mustache. Those old things. Now this feels like a 20th anniversary year now. Oh, that old thing.
He never met the first Doctor, did he?
Just on the view screen in the Three Doctors. That was it.
Well, bless my soul. So you've done it again, Doctor.
Somehow you look more ridiculous than normal. Namely the celery.
It's no good. I'm not taking my leave at the funny farm. There's nothing wrong with me, I tell you. Fit as a fiddle. Always have been. Sorry about that, Doctor. Had a bit of bother a while back. Overwork, you know. Dr. Runciman called it a nervous breakdown.
He seems evil.
The meaning of the word.
And you teach?
Mathematics. Oh, I know how many beans make 5, Doctor. You don't have to be a Time Lord to cope with A-level maths. It may come as a surprise to you, but I also happen to like teaching.
You know, this kind of throws a wrench into the whole thing of the unit stuff taking place in the 80s.
Oh, hello there.
I'm sorry to disturb you, but I'm
Mustache.
looking for a doctor. There's been an accident. Well, sort of an accident. A friend of mine and possibly one of the boys from the school. He may be hurt, too.
I think you better come in.
Oh, so she's in the past.
Oh, yeah. And to show the passage of time, he doesn't have the mustache.
Look, it's all a long time ago, Doctor. I mean, surely what's past is
Very much in the present, Brigadier. You never did understand the interrelation of time.
not much call for that in A-level syllabus, Doctor.
Waking or sleeping, you can never escape me, Turlo.
Kick him.
It's not quite like that. If we could just get some medical help and get back to the TARDIS, it'd all be...
TARDIS? Did you say TARDIS?
You don't understand.
I do, young lady. Tell me, Miss Travanka, this friend of yours, is it by any chance the Doctor?
Ah, yes, the old tie the sheets together and escape out the window. Never works.
No.
What worries me is
Turlo has disappeared.
Like, keep a guard on the door or something.
Well, they locked the door, so he couldn't
Yeah.
get out that way. That's why he went out the window. Oh, white socks with black shoes. Not a good look.
Lock the windows, too.
Tegan is absolutely right. I am not in the TARDIS.
Then who is? Or do I mean who was?
You tell me, Brigadier.
You know, now I'm curious. For the stuff with the Doctor, did they age him up a bit more?
The ending will come soon. I, Mawdryn, shall be a Time Lord.
Okay.
Alright.
Doctor!
It's riffraff.
Yeah. Somehow, so he looked terrible, then he got better, and then he got worse again. And he's getting all of his gross head pus all over Tom's jacket.
Okay, so as far as a script goes, this is well done in that it's jumping back and forth between the two time zones. That's a lot of fun. It's really not going anywhere yet. I mean, but again, they're trying to establish the various parts heading towards episode 4 or part 4.
Yeah.
But at this point, it's like, I mean, it's the end of episode or part 2 when they finally introduce us to the person who the entire episode is named after. And yet we still don't know who he is because none of this has anything at this point to do with Turlo and the Black Guardian.
Yeah. Like, I just went on a whole thing of, like, you know, we don't have any new villains this season, which is fine as a sort of retrospective season on 20 years of this show. And that's great, you know, let's have the Black Guardian. Maybe, you know, he can do something, which is more than we can say about the last time we saw him. But then, yeah, now we have Mawdryn, a gross guy who wants to be a Time Lord, but how does that work? And because at this point now it's just a question of what does he have to do with the Black Guardian? So I don't know. What are the odds that the Brigadier has a gun on him? I'm going to say low, just because he's a teacher at a boys' school, but if it was really the old days, then it would be. But again, this definitely throws... Because if he retired in 1977 from UNIT, yet back in the UNIT days with Sarah Jane, she specifically said it was 1980, so that...
Continuity? What continuity?
Yeah, which, I mean, it's just kind of a weird thing. Like, this honestly makes more sense because that means all the stuff with UNIT happened in the 70s when the episodes were airing anyway. So, it's more on back then, why did they specifically make that 1980 when it wasn't? So, I don't know. But I'm glad that in the past he at least has the mustache. Because that was another thing I thought is like, well, it's not like, oh, he couldn't grow the mustache or anything for reasons or something. Because the mustache was never real to begin with. He always had a fake mustache on, so... Which is also a weird detail. Like, I wonder who thought of that. Like, maybe they just thought of that not realizing they were going to have him being a recurring character. So... But yeah, but I knew it couldn't have been that he just couldn't grow a mustache. It's not like the reverse Henry Cavill situation where he had to come back to shoot new Superman scenes, but he had to keep his mustache for Mission Impossible. Anyway. A bit more hustle.
What do you mean that I could be two people?
Obviously, you'd exist twice over. And if the two of you met, you'd short out the time differential, don't you see? The Blinovitch limitation effect? As Tegan would say, zap.
It's not fair. He's met himself before.
Right, time for a recce. I think I better keep an eye on this character in case you're right about him, Tegan.
I'm coming with you.
You girls will stay here.
We girls are perfectly
You will
capable.
both remain here in the TARDIS, and that is an order, Mr. Banker.
He's from a different time.
Turlo could be useful.
And what about the danger you implied?
Still exists. But if you're so concerned about Turlo, set an example and stay behind.
Moral blackmail.
It would help if you weren't crying for help with paintings.
Why? You mean he's here with you as well?
As well?
How could you be so stupid?
What? He insisted on coming.
He also insisted on coming with me.
They didn't know that. I'm assuming the two Brigadiers meeting is what causes him to lose his memories. I love the way they walk because you can't necessarily see how they move.
Help us. No! Give us the energy of a Time Lord! Help us to die! I can't! For pity's sake!
Doctor, why can't you help them?
Don't you understand? If I did, it would be the end of me as a Time Lord.
So he's not really a villain, then. He's just a thing that... I guess the Black Guardian set this up so that Mawdryn would meet the Doctor, and thus the Doctor, in order to save them, would end up killing himself.
Convoluted, but that does seem to be where it's going.
It's about on par with one of the Master's plans, just without the charisma. So, but yeah, it's strange because it seemed that at the end of last episode, Mawdryn was saying he would be a Time Lord, unless this is, I suppose he could be lying, and they just want to take the Doctor's regenerative energy, thus they can properly regenerate and be truly immortal. So, I don't know. I'm not sure how the Black Guardian thinks this works at all. So
well, I guess he's banking on the inherent goodness of the Doctor to not let these people die.
Yeah.
will the Doctor sacrifice himself to do the right thing?
I mean, he also said this is the great humiliation of the Doctor as well. So it's not even just that he will die, but like maybe that's the thing, is he thinks that he's helping them and thus it will affect him or kill him or something.
But I think the humiliation comes in if that he doesn't do it, they're all going to die. Or they're all... So, it's one of those damned if you do and damned if you don't sort of things. Again, it's very convoluted at this point to us anyway.
Yeah.
So, obviously we have 24 more minutes to figure this all completely out.
He would only be humiliated to his companions and the Brigadier, which is a big thing, but like, the Time Lords probably just wouldn't do anything about this. Like, the Time Lords would look at this if he didn't save them and just be like, yeah, just let him suffer or something, because I don't know. It's a strange thing, but so is the Black Guardian, so...
I can only regenerate 12 times. I have already done so 4 times.
So?
Don't you see? 8 of them, 8 of me.
They want your remaining regenerations?
It's the only way to end their mutation.
Is that possible?
With this equipment, yes.
Let's get back to the TARDIS before they become hostile.
Come on, Doctor. We've got to get out of here.
We are scientists, not warriors. We have no weapons. The Doctor can only help us of his own free will.
What you want is murder 8 times over.
No. We desire it as our own death.
Have you tried, like, jumping into a star? That might work. I'm liking this 80s rock soundtrack we've had all episode.
But accept the consequences of your actions.
What does he mean?
I don't know.
Back to the TARDIS?
I mean, could you somehow get, like, 8 Time Lords who could spare 1 regeneration?
So you're...
They don't float so well coming downstairs.
No.
We stuck on this ship?
I wonder. If I reverse the polarity of the neutron.
Reverse the polarity. Bloody hell.
Kick him. Oh, that might get infected.
Stopped.
It's no good, Doctor.
Oh.
We're traveling in the opposite direction out of the ellipse. It's having the reverse effect. I cannot get clear of the ship without hurting Nissa and Tegan.
What are we going to do?
Could you technically send Tegan and Nissa through the transmat? That's not technically going through time.
And you risk all with your negligence and stupidity.
I can still keep the 2 Deathbed stewards apart.
If you fail me again, I shall destroy.
Why did you pick a schoolboy to kill a Time Lord?
And of course, the 2 of them meeting will cause the whole thing to explode.
So
I thought they were gonna, like, shake hands and blow up.
The 2 Brigadiers just shorted out the time differential.
You mean Zap?
Yes, that's right, Zap.
Can Nissa and I still time travel?
You're as good as new.
Can you still regenerate?
I am a Time Lord.
Look at Mawdryn.
It's funny he didn't think of this, honestly.
Brigadier, what happened? I came as soon as I got your message.
Oh, I guess Dr. Runciman wasn't evil.
There we are. 1983. Back to school, Brigadier.
Colonel probably uses the transmat.
Oh, he just snuck on anyway.
We thought you were on Mawdryn's ship.
I'm not that easy to get rid of.
So it seems.
Doctor, may I join you?
No.
I think you already have.
Throw him out. Let him get beaten by the headmaster. Why would you keep him? He's caused nothing but trouble.
Well, now this is really strange. You probably know about 1966, an American science fiction program called Lost in Space, about a family that was taking a spaceship to explore other parts of the galaxy. There was a saboteur on board who originally was not supposed to be a major character. He was supposed to be there and throw a wrench in the works, basically. It turns out, though, he was such a popular character that they brought him back. And even though the series ran for like 3 years, he never really got to be a good guy. I mean, he was constantly... So maybe they're thinking, throw a bad guy that the others don't know is a bad guy into the works, and maybe that will spice things up a bit.
Maybe...
But he's not a human being, is he? Because he keeps talking about going back to where he came from.
I guess, I don't know. Maybe.
And there at the end, was the Black Guardian on the ship that blew up, or was he able to escape?
I mean, but was he ever on the ship
in the first place?
To begin with, yeah. He might have just been communicating through the crystal that he had. I don't know. I mean, the Doctor never knew that the Black Guardian was causing this, so I suppose we could just have another episode where the Black Guardian sets up another thing, but that would be weird. So, I don't know. It seems... I mean, I get that... Because he said, the crystal was cracked. Somehow he is free from... I mean, the whole plan went awry because of the two Brigadiers. So, maybe he is free from the Black Guardian. And he did say he hated Earth. All one place he's ever really been. I mean, that is kind of one thing where it's like, oh, yes, I hate Earth. It's like, well, go somewhere.
They set it up, though, that his parents were dead, and the solicitor, or the lawyer, counselor, whoever, had to deal with somebody in London. So, you get the feeling that he is somehow, although it's not explicitly said that he's an alien, that he is not an actual human being from Earth.
Yeah, because there was the line about the solicitor. Unless it's something like the Black Guardian is the solicitor that kind of takes care of him or puts him somewhere. But, I mean, it is kind of the thing of, like, look, I understand if you're tired of a boys' school in the middle of England. Sure, that place looks dreadful. So, but I mean, like, just a couple episodes ago, we had those two guys backpacking across Europe, making their way to Amsterdam. It's like, I know, like, he probably doesn't have a lot, if any, money at all, and he has no connections to anyone, but you can still get to other places. There's more than just the dreary fields of England. So, but it also makes sense that he would be then willing to go on the TARDIS, but I don't know. And I guess they don't really know that he was plotting against them.
Yeah.
So, but it does just seem like a easy, grab him by the collar, toss him out to the Brigadier, and then leave. So, oh well. But yeah, so could the Black Guardian come back? I don't know. Like, that, I could see that happening again this season, because they have sort of left it open, but I'm not sure, because I think we are continuing on this, recurring villain every episode.
Yeah.
So, although, that said, adding in Mawdryn was an interesting idea. Even though it seemed more like he was going to be sort of a villain, but it wasn't really that. He wanted to die. He didn't actually want to become a Time Lord. He did that already, kind of. But now he just wanted to die at the expense of the Doctor's regenerations. So, I don't know. But, I mean, it was kind of an interesting wrinkle.
Yeah.
It's just a very strange, especially when... I mean, the idea, too, is that the Doctor would still have been alive. It's just that if he, got hurt again, he would just be out of his regeneration. So it's not even the greatest plan by the Black Guardian. So, I can't remember if they've established yet if the Time Lords can give a Time Lord more regenerations. The closest we've seen is the Master taking on a new body. And I guess we don't really know if the Master's new body grants him more regenerations, but I don't know. It's just kind of a strange thing, mainly tying it to the Black Guardian.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, other than that, it was a pretty good episode.
Yeah.
So, Turlo is an interesting idea for a companion, especially because, comparing Turlo, comparing any new male companion to his predecessors on the show is kind of a bit of a roller coaster, because with most of the girls, they are kind of all, throwing into the same sort of archetype, with variations, obviously. But with the guys, it's kind of complicated because they're more rare than a female companion. So, I mean, obviously, the last male companion we had was Adric. So, in that sense, Turlo, even as a troublemaker, can't be that bad. Like that's like they're kind of that kind of works together. But then, if you think back to Stephen or Harry, or you could probably even count Benton in there or anything. It's like it's such a difficult thing, kind of placing the male companions. What role is he serving now? Yeah. Especially too when you have Peter Davison, who's young and fit and energetic and everything. So, I think at this point, or I think even in just classic Doctor Who, I think he was the youngest actor to be the Doctor. I think when he started, he was 29, maybe 30, and I know that the only person since then who has ever been younger to take the role was Matt Smith, who was about 25, I think, when he took the role. So it's an interesting idea. Like, okay, so what role does Turlo fill? I guess the obvious thing would be troublemaker.
Yeah.
So
he's the provocateur, which is something they really haven't had, other than the Master and recurring characters like that.
Yeah.
But now there's one literally inside the TARDIS.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is just kind of a weird thing too, just because he was so actively working against the Doctor for the whole episode, and then at the end, it's like, oh well, sure, I guess we'll take you along. So, I don't know. But it was good to see the Brigadier again, which we mentioned that, I think, I can't remember, no, it was during Time Flight when they referenced that they called Unit, and Unit was like, yes, we know who the Doctor is, just listen to him, he can help you. And we were saying, oh, they should bring the Unit boys back, and, well, this is close enough. They brought the Brigadier. Unfortunately, no Sergeant Benton or anything, but we did at least get a mention of all of them, which was nice. And again, I'm curious, like, because it definitely looked, they did a good job making the two versions of the Brigadier look different age-wise, but now I'm more curious which one was done up more. Was the past one made to look younger, or was the one in 1983 made to look older?
I think the 83 was made to look older. They managed to gray his hair a little bit.
Yeah.
I suspect they padded his clothing a little bit so he looked a little bit heavier.
Yeah.
Because the Brigadier from 77 was in his, blue Navy suit or whatever that was, his uniform, which made him look much thinner.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, I think that is it, that they aged him up a bit. Because when was the last time we really had a unit story? 5, maybe 6 seasons ago? Probably around the last, in this story where it's 6 years ago for the Brigadier. So it probably was about 6 seasons ago or something. So that would make sense that, honestly, he probably, wouldn't look too much different from the way he was. So, but yeah, it was good to see him. I did like the use of both of the Brigadiers and having, just cutting quickly back and forth. Tegan and Nyssa dealing with the past Brigadier, and the Brigadier here remembering everything as best he can. So that was good. And it also makes sense that, why did he lose his memories of these events is because of that, because of the two of them encountering each other.
Yeah.
Which does bring up the question, why does that happen for the Brigadier and not for the Doctor when the Doctor meets himself,
Probably because, again, they're not human.
Something, yeah. The only thing I can really think is because it's generally a different body. The Doctor never really meets him, but it's his same face. Yeah. So it must be something like that. But I mean, just the fact that they never brought that up, mainly with the 3 Doctors, that these are all the same guy. So shouldn't that be a problem? And well, not really. So.
And other than the first Doctor, what was that? Not during the French Revolution, was it during St. Bartholomew's Day Massacre, where there was the other person that looked exactly like him? Was there? We've seen one other?
There was Salamander, who was also, but I mean that was just a completely different character. Yeah. He just happened to be Patrick Troughton. So, has that always happened now? Like, I swear that also happened with the 5th Doctor, but now I can't remember that. Technically there was also Omega, who took on the appearance of the 5th Doctor, but yeah, I feel like there was something like that, like with every Doctor, but I can't remember it now. But yeah.
Well, the 3rd Doctor, in the separate worlds, he didn't meet himself, though, there, did he? He met everybody else. But he stayed the same.
Yeah, there was no version of the Doctor there, which I think, and I don't think they were thinking about this.
Inferno?
Yeah. I don't think they were thinking about this at the time, but I've heard that somewhere someone said, which that's most of Doctor Who lore is someone somewhere said this, so technically it's canon, that there is no other version of Gallifrey. Like, even if there is this giant, vast multiverse, there's only ever one version of Gallifrey and one version of the Doctor, I think. Even if there are, doppelgangers of everything else, the Time Lords are not replicated. So, I don't know how valid that is. I'm sure it's on the wiki somewhere, but, yeah. I mean, that's also the thing of, we were just talking about Salamander. That story takes place in 2018. Well, Doctor Who finally caught up to 2018, and there is nary a reference to Salamander's empire. That would have been hilarious, but yeah, so I think, the wiki will do something like, in one version of 2018, there's Salamander. In another version of 2018, the 13th Doctor is going around doing stuff. So yeah, I think that's just most canon with Doctor Who is just... Is it canon? It could be. So. In terms of the other stuff this episode, I do still find it weird that the Doctor never realized that the Black Guardian was doing this, Yeah. And for such a big follow-up to, the Black Guardian, who technically was a season-long villain, and they did a whole thing, and the Doctor even, kind of crippled the TARDIS a bit in order to get away from him, because he, set it to where the TARDIS always appears randomly, and all this stuff happened. And finally, the Black Guardian comes back, and the Doctor just doesn't really know about it, you know?
Yeah.
Which, I mean, is also sort of the thing that I think of, like, well, do the kids remember the Black Guardian?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, that was 3, I'm going to say max 4 seasons ago, so it's not unheard of for them to remember. I mean, they still, to this day, reference Romana and everything, but then when you have that moment where the Doctor is saying, you know, how's Sergeant Benton, how's Joe or Sarah Jane or Liz, and it's like, and then they show all the clips, and that's great, and I'm glad that they do that stuff, but it is always the thing I wonder of, do the kids actually know about that, you know?
Yeah.
Now maybe there were still adults, you know, they were kids in 1963, and now 20 years later, how old were you in 1983?
In 1983, I would have been 32.
So maybe there's still some people who, like you know, watched Doctor Who when it started. Now they're 32 years old, and they're like, hey, I know all of these references. Maybe not the kids, but then I guess there's also the idea that, I don't know when the Target novelization started, but I suppose it's entirely possible that that maybe kids were reading, if they were big fans of Doctor Who, they go to... Do they have Target in the UK, though?
The Target books are not affiliated with the Target stores, as far as I know.
Okay, never mind. So they go and find the Target books. And so maybe they read that because they're just huge fans of Doctor Who, and they see that because otherwise, with the exception of some reruns, you don't really know some of this stuff.
Yeah.
But then again, see, and that's the thing of, like, again, that's not really like a critique or anything like that, but it's more of it's just an interesting observation, because you have some of these things where it's like, well, do they even remember, you know, 4 seasons ago about the Black Guardian? And then we hear they did remember 15 years ago when Barbara was on, so now that she's back but she's not Barbara, everyone's like, what's going on here? So, I don't know. It's just a big back and forth. Hopefully, I assume they remember. I guess it would be harder to remember the Brigadier than the Black Guardian, because he's from even further back than the Black Guardian, but I don't know. It's just sort of, it's an interesting yet odd inclusion into the story, and if we don't see the Black Guardian again, that's going to be even weirder.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I don't know. I don't have much else other than it is fun when, you know, when Tegan references the TARDIS and the Brigadier's like, wait a minute, I know that. I know what's going on here. And it is, I guess, funny when, you know, he says, you know, you two ladies will stay behind, and that's an order. And he goes off as his normal, you know, blustering British military man, as he always is. So, which, I mean, I'm trying to think. I'm pretty sure, like, I'm pretty sure the two of them are not the first ones to give him crap for that. So, I'm pretty sure that was happening back during the 70s era too. So, but yeah, all in all, I think this also probably definitely works more because it has the Brigadier, and he's just always just fun to have. So, you got anything else?
I got nothing. What's up next?
Up next, if I can find the mouse cursor. Up next is Terminus. Perhaps this will be the great Majora's Mask crossover, even though that didn't happen yet. And I mean, it's 1983. The Nintendo's not even out yet. But anyway,
so it's February 14th, 1983. That's exactly that is 3 years to the day before your mother and I got married. We were married February 14th, 1986.
Add that to the lore that nobody's keeping track of about us. So, with all that being said, we're Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films, and we will see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. There's a bunch of links on screen. I've lost everything. Hang on. Start again. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. There's a bunch of links on screen if you want to go click around to any of those. There's a playlist for all of our classic Doctor Who reactions, as well as another playlist for all of my modern Doctor Who reactions. I'm losing everything at this point. There's also a subscribe button and a Patreon button on screen, as well as other links in the description if you want to go check out any of those. See you guys later.